Welcome back, my dear friend. Make yourself comfortable. Tonight, we're diving into the idea of infinity. How does it affect the world around us and our lives? And the big question, does infinity have an end? Infinity in simple terms, it's the idea of no end. Imagine you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and you never stop. No matter how far you go, there's always one more. That's infinity, not a real number, but a concept showing something can go on forever. Let's talk about examples of infinity in life and science. Numbers, however many you add, there's always more. Space, the universe might be infinitely big. We don't know for sure. Time, if you imagine time never stopping, that's also infinity. The key is, infinity isn't a number. It's an idea, a way to describe endlessness, eternity, or no boundaries. A historical view. How humanity understood infinity. Ancient Greeks like Anaximander spoke of the apeiron, something boundless, from which everything comes. Infinity was a primal force, sacred and unknowable. Pythagoreans feared infinity. They valued order and numbers, and infinity meant chaos. Zeno of Elea made famous paradoxes, like Achilles and the tortoise, to show how infinite division and motion led to contradictions. Infinity is not just a weird number. It's an idea that has followed humanity since ancient times, first as a divine mystery, then as a philosophical challenge, and finally as a tool in science and math. Infinity plays a role in science, art, philosophy, and even daily thinking. Here's how and why. In science, to understand the universe and its laws. In art, to express eternity, depth, and ideals. In philosophy, to understand ourselves and reality. In daily life, in how we talk, think, and feel, even if we don't notice. We say, I have an infinite number of things to do. He loves her endlessly. It lasted forever. Infinity isn't just something very big or that never stops. It's a concept that connects science, culture, and everyday life. It helps us think, feel, create, and understand more than the eye can see. Let's take a deeper look at infinity in different areas. Infinity in mathematics. What is Hilbert's hotel in simple terms? Imagine a hotel so big it has an infinite number of rooms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, without end. German mathematician David Hilbert invented this idea to show how strange and amazing infinity behaves. Situation 1. All rooms are full. A new guest arrives. In a regular hotel, if all rooms are taken, there's no space for a new guest. But in Hilbert's hotel, things work differently. What does the manager do? He asks every guest to move one room up. Room 1 to room 2, room 2 to room 3, room 3 to room 4, and so on. Now room 1 is empty, and the new guest can move in. Even when the hotel is full, it can still take more guests. Because infinity is special. Situation 2. An infinite number of new guests arrive. Let's say a bus comes with infinitely many people. Guests 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems impossible, but Hilbert's hotel can still handle it. What does the manager do? He moves every current guest to a room with double their number. Guest in 1 to room 2, guest in 2 to room 4, guest in 3 to room 6, and so on. Now all the odd-numbered rooms, 1, 3, 5, 7, are free for the new guests. This shows that infinity doesn't behave like normal numbers. Even if something is full, it can still hold more. Even when you double infinity, it's still infinity. Hilbert's Hotel is a thought experiment to show how weird and interesting infinity is. But we can explore it, one idea at a time. And the most beautiful part? We can never fully hold infinity. It shows us that some things never stop growing, changing, or unfolding. A way to think beyond limits, beyond endings. In the end, infinity in math is like a quiet doorway. Even though we can't reach infinity, we live beside it in ideas, patterns, time, and imagination. Time and calendars. Every new year we flip the page. 2025, 2026, 2030, 3000. The numbers keep going. There's always a next year. Fractals. These are shapes that look the same no matter how much you zoom in. You can explore their edges forever, always seeing new detail. Without the concept of infinity, many parts of calculus, physics, and economics simply wouldn't work. Infinity might seem abstract, but you see hints of it all around you. Mirrors facing each other. You see a reflection of a reflection of a reflection, creating an infinite hallway of images. Create models of the universe. Whether it's space, time, or energy, infinity is at the heart of many theories. Work with infinite series, where you keep adding smaller and smaller numbers and still get a finite answer. Infinity isn't just a curiosity, it's a powerful tool in math and science. It helps us understand limits, like what happens if something grows or shrinks endlessly. This was discovered by the mathematician Georg Cantor in the 19th century. He showed that infinite sets could be compared, and some could even be uncountably infinite. It was revolutionary. For example, between 1 and 2, you can have 1.1, 1.11, 1.111, 1.1111, and so on, forever. So while both sets are infinite, there are more real numbers than whole numbers. That means some infinities are bigger than others. In other words, infinity doesn't change just because you add or multiply. It always stays infinite. But here's the wild part. Not all infinities are equal. It sounds strange. But in advanced math, there are actually different sizes of infinity. There are infinitely many whole numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. But between any two whole numbers, there are infinitely many fractions. In math, when we use infinity, 100 plus infinity equals infinity. Infinity plus infinity equals infinity. Infinity times 2 equals infinity. What makes infinity so special? Infinity behaves in ways that break the rules of ordinary arithmetic. Here's how. You can't ever reach infinity by counting. It's not a final number. It's more like the idea of never stopping. Repeating decimals. Some numbers, like 1 divided by 3, give 0.3333, with the 3's continuing infinitely. The decimal never ends. Lines in geometry. A straight line has no beginning and no end. It goes on forever in both directions. Simple examples of infinity in maths. Numbers. Imagine counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000. No matter how high you go, you can always add one more. Numbers never stop. That's infinity. Let's take a closer look. It helps us describe the limitless, the uncountable, and the ever-continuing. In fact, it's not a number at all. It's a concept, a way of thinking about things that never end. Infinity in mathematics is not just a really big number. Infinity in physics is not something we can touch or observe directly. It's more like a tool, a powerful idea used to describe extreme situations where our normal understanding of space, time, and matter begins to fall apart. It means something becomes so enormously large or unimaginably small that it has no limit. But be careful. Physicists rarely believe that actual infinity exists in nature. Instead, they see it as a signal that our equations are reaching a boundary and that reality might be more complex than we thought. In quantum physics, we study particles that are incredibly small, smaller than atoms, down to the tiniest measurable units of time and space. A nanosecond is 1/billionth of a second. A Planck time is even smaller, the shortest time interval that we believe has any physical meaning, about 5.39 times 10 to the power of 4 to the power of 4 seconds. Similarly, the Planck length, about 1.6 times 10 cubed to the power of 5 meters, is considered the smallest meaningful length. But here's the mystery. If we try to go smaller than that, our current physics stops making sense. Our math collapses. Infinity appears, not as something real, but as a warning. You've gone beyond what we can describe. Now imagine a star much bigger than our sun. When it runs out of fuel, gravity pulls it inward until it collapses. According to Einstein's theory of general relativity, that collapse continues until all the matter is crushed into a single point, a singularity, where density and gravity become infinite. But again, this isn't real infinity. It's another mathematical signal, showing us that our equations no longer work under such extreme conditions. Physicists believe the true nature of a black hole center is more subtle, and that we'll need a new theory, like quantum gravity, to fully understand what happens inside. Now let's look outward, into space. We live in a universe that may have no edge. Some cosmological models suggest it could be infinite in size, stretching on forever in every direction. But we can only observe a tiny part of it, the observable universe, limited by the speed of light and the age of the universe. Light from very distant galaxies hasn't had time to reach us yet, so beyond that horizon, we simply don't know. Is the universe truly infinite, or just very, very big? This remains one of the great unanswered questions in physics. Even if infinity isn't real, it appears in formulas and models all the time. Integrals. Physicists often calculate areas or probabilities over infinite ranges. For example, using integrals from infinity to plus infinity when modeling wave functions in quantum mechanics. Limits. In certain scenarios, speed, energy, or forces can approach infinity, but there's always a limit. For example, nothing can go faster than the speed of light. In fact, when physicists see infinity in an equation, it's usually a sign that something is wrong. The math might blow up, giving infinite results where finite ones are expected. It means the theory is incomplete or breaks down under certain conditions. This is why physicists develop techniques like renormalization, a way of cleaning up infinite values to get usable, finite results. In quantum field theory, for example, particles like electrons interact with their own energy fields in complex ways, and the raw math gives infinite answers. But after applying renormalization, those answers become real numbers that match what we see in experiments. Why does all this matter? Because wherever infinity appears, it tells us something important. It marks the edge of our understanding, the point where current models no longer work. It challenges us to dig deeper, to discover new theories that can go beyond those limits. It helps build models that, even if they aren't perfect, are incredibly useful for describing the real world. Infinity pushes us forward, from the smallest particles to the vastness of the cosmos. It reminds us, you haven't reached the end. there's always more to explore. Infinity in philosophy isn't about numbers or equations. It's about meaning, mystery, and the limits of human understanding. Philosophers ask deep, timeless questions. Can we truly imagine something that has no end? Something with no border, no size, no shape, no time? Infinity in this context is not a thing. It is a concept, a mental bridge that takes us beyond what we can see or measure. What does infinity mean in philosophy? Infinity can point to many ideas. Infinitely large, space without boundaries, time without a beginning or an end. The nature of God is limitless and eternal. Infinitely small, the endless division of matter. Can we keep cutting something into halves forever? Is there a smallest piece, or does size never truly stop? Beyond time and form, concepts like eternity, soul, or spirit. These don't have physical dimensions. They exist outside measurable reality. In philosophy, infinity often represents the unknowable, something just out of reach, but deeply significant. Let's take a quiet walk through time and see how the idea of infinity evolved in thought. Ancient Greece, Anaximander, 6th century BCE, introduced the idea of the apeiron, a boundless, limitless substance that gave birth to all things. It was neither one thing nor another, but the endless source of everything. Aristotle took a more structured approach. He distinguished between two types of infinity. Potential infinity, something that can be endlessly added to or divided, but is never complete. Like counting, you can always go further. Actual infinity, a finished, completed, infinite thing. Aristotle was skeptical about this. He didn't think it could truly exist in the physical world. For the Greeks, infinity was fascinating, but also threatening, because it didn't fit into the orderly, measurable world they loved. The Middle Ages. In the hands of Christian philosophers and theologians, infinity took on a sacred meaning. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas argued that only God is truly infinite. He is beyond time, space, change, perfect and eternal. Everything else in the world is created, finite, and dependent. To speak of infinity was to speak of divinity, the ultimate mystery that the human mind can approach but never fully grasp. The modern era. As science and reason began to rise, philosophers revisited the question of infinity, now through logic, thought, and consciousness. Descartes believed that if we could conceive of something infinite, like a perfect being, it must exist. For him, the idea of infinity proved the existence of God. Immanuel Kant had a different view. He argued that human beings cannot fully imagine infinity. We can only think about it in abstract terms. Our minds are wired to deal with beginnings and endings, not the endless. Georg Hegel brought a new perspective. He said there are two kinds of infinity. 1. Empty infinity, just the idea of forever and ever, going nowhere. 2. True infinity, a dynamic process where growth happens through contradictions and unfolding truths. To Hegel, infinity was not just a destination, but a journey of the spirit, constantly evolving. Infinity plays a crucial role in philosophy because it helps us explore the limits of reason. Where does our thinking stop? Are there things we can sense but never fully know? The nature of the universe. Is time eternal? Did the universe have a beginning? Can it go on forever? The questions of spirit, soul, and truth. Is the soul eternal? Is love infinite? Is truth something that unfolds forever? Infinity in philosophy is not a number. It's a doorway to deeper thinking. about God, the universe, meaning, and ourselves. It teaches us humility. It reminds us that some things cannot be measured, and that some truths are too vast to be captured in formulas or facts. Infinity is a symbol of wonder and a reminder that there's always more to explore, not just in the world, but in our own minds. Infinity in art and culture. Infinity isn't just a concept reserved for mathematicians or physicists. It's something deeply human, a symbol of what we can't explain, but deeply feel, of the eternal, the limitless, and the mysterious. In art and culture, infinity is not just an idea. It becomes a shape, a rhythm, a story, whispering across time that some things never end. Visual art, infinity through pattern and illusion. Art has long used pattern and repetition to suggest what never ends. In Islamic and Moorish architecture, artists created endless geometric patterns, intricate designs that repeat infinitely in every direction. These weren't just decorative. They symbolized the eternal nature of the divine, the order in chaos, the oneness beyond the visible world. In the 20th century, Dutch artist M.C. Escher became famous for exploring visual paradoxes, drawings where water flows in a never-ending loop. Staircases lead both up and down forever. Shapes morph into new forms endlessly. His art plays with perception, mimicking infinity through space and form, bending what the eye sees into what the mind can't fully resolve. Infinity is nature's language. In romantic landscape paintings, infinity becomes emotional. Painters like Caspar David Friedrich captured endless skies, vast oceans, and solitary figures looking out into the unknown. These works express the feeling of infinity, not with numbers, but with space, silence, and stillness. They invite the viewer to feel small, and yet connected to something endless and profound. Literature. Stories that never end. Writers have long turned to infinity to explore meaning, time, and imagination. In myths from ancient Greece, India, and beyond, time is not linear, but cyclical, a wheel of life, death, and rebirth. What was, will be again, and again. Friedrich Nietzsche asked us to imagine the eternal return, that everything in your life would repeat forever. Would you embrace it or despair? Jorge Luis Borges, the master of literary infinity, wrote about endless libraries holding every possible book, mirrors that reflect into forever, paths that split infinitely, each leading to new worlds. In his story, The Library of Babel, every book that ever could exist is already written, stored in a cosmic library with no end, a metaphor for the infinite complexity of thought, knowledge, and possibility. Music, sound without end. Music can also evoke the infinite through structure and feeling. Minimalist composers like Philip Glass and Steve Reich use loops, subtle variations, and rhythmic cycles to create music that feels eternal, always moving, never finishing. In medieval and sacred music, slow, echoing tones are used to transport the listener to a space beyond time, where the soul floats in the quiet, without beginning or end. Such music doesn't just play, it breathes, hovers, surrounds. It holds space for the infinite, symbols, beliefs, and sacred forms. Infinity is deeply woven into cultural and spiritual symbols. The infinity symbol, a sideways figure 8, was introduced in the 1600s by mathematician John Wallis. Today it represents eternal love, unbroken cycles, limitless connection. In Eastern religions, Hinduism and Buddhism embrace the idea of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Life is not a line, but a circle. Mandalas, sacred geometric patterns, are used in meditation and ritual to visualize the infinite. You can trace them inward forever, or let them expand outward into the cosmos. They remind us that infinity is not just vast, it is also within us. In short, infinity in art and culture is not explained, it's felt. It shows up in stories, in sounds, in symbols, and in silence. It helps us express what is too big to hold, but too deep to ignore. Through brushstrokes, pages, notes, and patterns, we reach toward the endless and bring a little of it into our world. Infinity often feels like a distant, abstract concept, something reserved for mathematics or deep philosophy. But in reality, we brush up against the idea of infinity in our everyday experiences. Whether it's in the patterns we live by, the tools we use, or the emotions we feel, traces of the infinite are all around us. Endless time. We move through time without ever seeing it start or finish. Time feels boundless. There's always a before and always a tomorrow. Expressions like "I've been waiting forever" reflect how time can feel infinite, especially when we're impatient or bored. Some moments stretch so long, they feel like they'll never end, while others fly by, leaving behind a sense of timelessness. Repetition and routine life is built on cycles that repeat over and over. Everyday habits, brushing teeth, making coffee, going to work, form loops that mirror infinity. The rhythm of weeks, months, and years becomes a pattern we live inside, often without noticing. Even emotional patterns, the way we respond to stress or joy, can feel like loops we revisit endlessly. The internet, our digital lives, tap into an infinity of information and interaction. Scrolling on social media can feel like falling into an endless stream with no bottom. The internet holds an ever-growing archive of facts, opinions, images, and entertainment, more than any one person could consume in a lifetime. Every link leads to more links, every video to another, a digital web without end. Language and ideas. Human imagination and communication are inherently infinite. Language is generative. We can create an endless variety of sentences, stories, and poems. Jokes, metaphors, and new expressions continue to emerge, generation after generation. Deep conversations with friends can stretch into the night, seemingly without a finish line, exploring thought after thought. Dreams and desires. Our inner worlds are driven by desires that never settle. We always want more meaning, more love, more success, more peace. Even when we reach one goal, new dreams take its place, creating a lifelong cycle of pursuit. This endless longing fuels art, innovation, travel, relationships, much of what gives life depth. Technology. Much of our modern world runs on infinite loops. Clocks tick endlessly, computers calculate nonstop, and apps refresh constantly. Charging your phone, updating software, backing up files, it's a cycle that repeats daily. Even the concept of cloud storage hints at limitless digital space, an infinity of memory. Nature. The natural world is a living example of infinite cycles. The sun rises and sets, tides roll in and out, and seasons shift again and again. Plants bloom, decay, and seed the next generation in a continuous loop of life. Nature reminds us that infinity isn't static. It moves, breathes, and evolves. In short, infinity isn't just a mathematical idea. It's woven into the fabric of our daily lives. We experience it in time that stretches on, in routines that loop, in digital spaces that never stop expanding, and in thoughts and dreams that keep unfolding. Far from being distant or abstract, infinity lives quietly within the ordinary, reminding us that the universe and our lives within it are bigger and more open-ended than they often appear. What unites all these infinities? Despite showing up in many forms: time, routine, technology, nature, every version of infinity shares a common thread. These infinities may look different on the surface, but they are bound by a deeper truth. It never truly ends. Whether it's the ticking of a clock or the unfolding of a dream, infinity always points to something that continues without a final stop. There's no finish line, no ultimate conclusion. Instead, there is always more time, more questions, more possibilities. It's beyond what we can fully see or measure. Infinity stretches beyond the boundaries of our senses and tools. We can talk about it, imagine it, approximate it, but we can never hold it in our hands. It lives just beyond our grasp, like the horizon, always visible, but never reachable. It feels mysterious, inspiring, even overwhelming. The idea of infinity can make us feel small, and also incredibly connected to something vast. It sparks wonder. It reminds us how little we know and how much there is still to explore. At times, infinity feels like a puzzle. At other times, it feels like comfort, a gentle reminder that not everything needs to be explained or contained. It often appears as cycles or repetitions. Many infinities show up not as endless lines, but as loops, recurring habits, natural rhythms, emotional patterns. These cycles offer stability and continuity, familiar, yet infinite in their own way. The beauty of a cycle is that it doesn't end, it renews. It's a concept, not a thing. You can't touch infinity, but you can think it, feel it, express it. It lives in mathematics, yes, but also in art, music, stories, love, and loss. It's the space beyond words, the silence at the edge of a song, the feeling that something is limitless. A universal idea. Infinity connects science and imagination, logic and emotion. It threads through equations and poetry, through the movement of planets and the flow of daily life. It reminds us that the world is not boxed in, that time has no corners, space has no ceiling, and ideas have no edges. Infinity teaches us to live with wonder. It encourages curiosity and invites humility. It tells us you are part of something vast. And so, the big question remains, will infinity always stay a mystery? Maybe that's the point. Not every mystery is meant to be solved. Some are meant to be lived, felt, and accepted, like the sky above or the dream you drift into at night. Sleep peacefully. Your infinity is already here. It surrounds you, flows through you, and waits in tomorrow's questions. No need to chase it, just be in it, always.